Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins. I am the co-founder of Conception Arts and an art business coach. And I'm delighted to be joined by one of my art business students, actually, Maureen Maki. Welcome to the show, Maureen. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. So we were just chatting before we jumped on. Maureen is out in Los Angeles, and obviously it's some ungodly hour there right now. So is it 7 a.m.?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay, so that's not too bad. So, what is in your cup this morning? What are you drinking?
Hot tea. I drink a lot of it. Black, green, herbal, but today, first thing in the morning, black tea.
Well, I have my kind of constant flow of black coffee in the morning, so I should probably be drinking tea, but that's all right. So, tell us a little bit about your beautiful work that we see in the background there. What kind of medium are you working in?
Yeah, so you can kind of see a few of my pieces back here. I really developed my own technique over the years, and I use paper right now, collaged pieces of decorative paper and other papers that I handmade paper. It's all kind of high-end art papers because I want it to last. I've been through years of mixed media, and I've put everything and anything in my paintings, including maybe receipts, anything you can find in the world. I put my whole world in my art, but now it's somewhat contained, and I just have paper. So it's like paintings with paper. And the ones I'm showing that you can kind of see over my shoulders are sort of a leaf-like shape. So there's really a nature feel to all my work. But again, it's collage. Technically, it's collage. I feel like it's painting with paper and with a lot of organic energy and life and inspired by plants and nature. And it's nice to be in Los Angeles for that reason. I moved here from Detroit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went from gray industrial world, which I didn't hate. There's something very beautiful about that. But I came here and it's just bright light and everything grows all year long. Everything and anything can grow here. And I just know that has influenced my work quite a bit.
So did you grow up in Detroit, or was that?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan. I grew up in various little towns across Michigan, and eventually I went to school there at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. After that, I moved to Detroit, and I did a lot in the art scene there for about 10 years before moving to Los Angeles, to the bright lights and beautiful leaves.
Right. It always feels, every time I go to LA, I'm like, I can't imagine living there because everything just feels so perfect. Like, not in downtown LA, that's a whole different story, but like just the weather, the climate, the beauty, like you said, everything grows. It's just luscious.
Yeah.
Beautiful vistas and beaches. And I don't know whether maybe I'd be a little too happy there. Would I be able to create good artwork if I lived there?
I do know what you mean, but you get used to it. When I first moved here, it didn't rain for a super long time, especially not for someone who is used to rain. And it was 70 and sunny every single day. It was like 70 and sunny. I couldn't take
terrible.
It was. After a while, I just felt like I was being beaten down by that sun. But and then I laughed because people in LA kind of start getting depressed when they have like 3 cloudy days. Right. But I'm not like that, but I am adjusted to 70s and sunny, and I just hate to be cold. That's one of the main reasons I left. I could not handle another winter of just freezing to death. I always lived in these big lofts with very little heat, like a broken radiator in the corner. I'd be like eating dinner with my hat and mittens. But so I'm more suited to warmer weather.
That's awesome. So I think about LA and what it is today, and it's definitely developed as a location for contemporary art. I've seen a lot of folks, big galleries going out there, and obviously they have the annual LA Art Fair out there as well. But what brought you out there? What took you to the West Coast other than the beautiful weather and gorgeous climate?
Well, that was really a big part of it. I was going to either go to New York or LA. I truly love New York. It's a great place, but I just didn't want to do the winter anymore. So I came here, and it's since I've been here, which has been a while, like 20 years, it has, wow. But I landed right in the artistic community in Echo Park, and I showed my work. I did actually have something in the LA Art Show one year.
Wow.
But, it's just gotten trendier and trendier. I have people come from New York come visit me and take me out to these amazing restaurants in LA. And I was like, where did you find out about this place? And I thought all the amazing restaurants were in New York. But no, it's changing. And downtown LA, you mentioned, is pretty amazing too. I live in like a couple little areas where there's nothing but tents. We have Skid Row. We have a lot of homeless, because I'm sure people would like to come to this weather to be homeless in. But it's a bustling art and cultural center now. I still can't believe it. It's changed a lot, and it's great. I think most of the cities, even Detroit, have had their resurgence. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe that's going to change now. But right, everything has come up since the 90s, when I was in my earlier days of my art career, and all the cities were like crumbling, especially Detroit. And we had the best time. It was great. I enjoyed being in that desolate city because we had it all to ourselves. I was in downtown Detroit, and it was a ghost town half the time. But now here I'm in a whole other situation, and it's better for me now.
Yeah, Detroit certainly has that grit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're from Detroit, you're tough and you have grit. And I just brought that grit with me to LA, I hope. But on the flip side, like you said, it's sort of hard to be too angry when you look out the window and see mountains, and you look out the other window and I have a view of downtown. It's awesome. It's great. For me, I have a view, and I realize that makes my whole world better. Yeah, it's really, because then I've lived in a place with a view, and then I moved out, and I was just getting more and more depressed. Something about being up above and seeing in the distance, it's magical.
Well, especially that view of the mountains out there. It's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I'm glad you touched on the homeless, though, because I just was stunned when I saw that in California for the first time. It was actually in San Diego. We were doing a show at was a new brewery, and the breweries tend to be like a little bit on the outskirts of the town, because they obviously need these big warehouse spaces. And we went to get a bite to eat, and we literally turned a corner, and you would have thought you were in a third world country. And this is San Diego, which is a pretty affluent city, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like you said, like a city of tents, and just terrible kind of class divide visual right there in front of us.
Yeah, that's what downtown LA is like, because there are people living in lofts that start at $900,000 to purchase. And literally, I do some work down in that area, like where a block away, 2 blocks away, or even right outside your door, you come out of your beautiful luxury loft and you step down on this street, and there's just tents everywhere. It's changing a little bit right now because of the virus, and people are trying to get the homeless people inside somewhere and contained to some degree so they don't spread it. And then if they have it, they have putting them in hotels, which is something I think they do more of in New York. But it is, and the other thing about the tent cities is they pop up everywhere. Like one day there's none, and the next day there it is. And then they're there for a month or two, and then the city comes in and cleans it up, and they just, they're shuttled around. And I think it's almost like there's neighborhoods. Like I live in that tent city over in Koreatown. I live in the tent city down under the so-and-so bridge. I mean, it's everywhere, and I don't even know what to say about it, other than we're all like one illness away from being homeless, especially just depending on however your income is. So I think about it a lot, and I feel for those people. And now I'm still like waiting to see what happens, because now everyone's lost their job, or a lot of people have. So we'll see what happens next.
It's devastating to see it. And, when you're saying there about, the government's kind of, or the cities are sweeping in and putting these folks in hotels, and you think, well, why could this not have been done before? If you obviously have those resources and availability, So
the politics of that is beyond me. And I would, and I think that we probably have 60,000. We have 50 or 60,000 homeless people in LA County. So that's a lot. It's like a whole city, small city.
And you see it really in the US in every warm city. I saw it in Florida. It's funny because, I grew up in the UK, and obviously you would see kind of the homeless, like one or two people maybe sleeping on the streets, but nothing to this extent. And it's amazing when you think, the vast amount of wealth that there is in this country compared to, what you see, the visuals that you see is just, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I don't want to depress everybody. We're here to talk about art and your wonderful work. So take me back to the early days for you. When did you realize that you had this passion for creativity?
Early, very early. I would say when I was 5. Sounds crazy, but I always wanted to. That was the one thing I always liked. I liked to draw. My mother would take me around to classes, no matter where I was. Like, I remember a beading class, or little drawing, clay, anything at all. She recognized early that that's what I wanted to do. I remember I went to some sort of college testing, and they were like, she's very high marks in artwork, and it's just always been a thing for me. By the time I got to high school, I was getting really serious about it, and I was I did a couple large canvases, and that was pretty radical for my high school. And then I went to college. I was discouraged from going to art school, and I swore that I was like, but I want to go to art school. And I started in the other liberal arts, and I immediately transferred to the art school. I'm like, I just, that's what I do. So it's always been my thing to be an artist for such a long time ago. And I know I've heard on your coffee talks that you ask people about owning the term artist, and it was like almost the opposite for me, because I'm like, I am an artist, and kind of, if you are an artist, you have to fight for that. And over the years, I've had the thing about having a real job or a day job versus being an artist and having that job. And I've been through every and any different configuration, other than just making all my money off art all the time. Unfortunately, that's never really been the whole, there have been times, but it's never lasted. And I've always considered that this dilemma, like, it's easy for me to claim the title of artist, but office worker, whatever, bartender, house painter, I didn't want to be that. I want to be an artist. And I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I feel that it's okay to be both. I mean, it really is. I'm still coming into, my whole life has been trying to accept that. And there's no reason why I should have to always fight, but that's how it is inside my head. Do you know what I mean?
Society. Yeah, I totally know what you mean, because society wants to pigeonhole us, right? That's the problem. They want to put us in a little box and say, this is what I am. And, some of the greatest people that I've met over the years, like, either don't know what they want to be when they quote unquote grow up, or they have second or third careers planned. Like, and I think that's wonderful. Like, I think how exciting is that? Like, we get one opportunity to be on this planet. Like, why do we have to stay in one lane? Why do we have to just be, to say that this is all a lot, right? I'm one thing, and I'm going to be this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm a totally different person to who I was a decade ago.
Right.
And I hope to be a totally different person to who I am in a decade from now. And that's what makes life rich.
It's something like you have to be, no, I am an artist because the world says you can't be, or, it's not. You have to fight so hard to do that if you do anything else, it's a contradiction or failure in some twisted way. But I agree. I've had 10 different lives. I feel like I've been through so many different things. And yeah, that's exciting. And it's good that I'm the kind of person who thrives in change like that, because I have other people that I know who have been in the same job for 30 years and they're okay with that. I'm pretty sure that would be hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're right. And that is okay, right? It's like, I have friends that I grew up with who live in the same zip code that we grew up in as adults and have raised their children, around the corner from their parents. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That just wasn't the path that I took, I mean, I live, not that I didn't want to live near my family, of course I do, but, life took me to different places and, I thrived in that environment of, like you said, like change and newness and, just I had this yearning for different cultural experiences, and that's okay. Like we're all different. We all have different goals, different ambitions, different desires. But I think just, so society as a whole just tends to want to put us in little careers, little paths, little boxes, even as artists as well, is that idea that, well, you can be a painter, but you should stay in your lane. Like, don't think about starting to do sculpture or don't think about doing anything outside the box.
I've done a lot of different art over the years too. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Anyone who's trying to make it in a certain way in terms of selling tons of paintings, let's keep making the same painting over and over again. You're just going to have to do that if you want people to recognize you. And yeah, I pretty much hate that idea, but I have, but I've reined it in. And it's because, just by doing my own technique and sticking with my paper idea, nobody else is doing that. So even if my paintings are kind of slightly different subject matter, they still have that part that's consistent. But over the years I've done music. I've never been great at anything. Painting is the thing that I'm best at. I've tried to write a novel and I did that because I had too many paintings and I didn't have a good studio, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I've got all this canvases I'm like carting around with me and all these paints and stuff. And look at these people who write novels, all they need is a computer. I was jealous. But I also just, I had too many paintings. So I decided to, it's kind of bizarre, huh? But I took a couple years trying to write, and it was really hard. It was really difficult, but it was also an experience and change. And, I learned quite a lot, even if I learned how to write a little better, but I learned to appreciate writing. And now I just read a lot more than I used to, fiction. And anyway, I said at one point, why am I spending all my time? And I ended up moving to a place where I had a little more space, or a lot more space. And I also had the opportunity to get rid of a bunch of paintings, which people think is a bad thing, but it was the most freeing thing, because I had been carrying around paintings for so many years that I wasn't going to sell, because they definitely were not in the same box that you talked about. And they were just holding me down. So I ended up getting rid of them and just was like, oh yeah, now I have space to paint again. And it's kind of funny how it happened, but I guess I had to go through that to get to here. And now I'm painting with paper.
That's awesome. So I'm intrigued. Did you finish your novel?
I finished a first draft. I would almost say I finished a second draft, but I was taking classes at UCLA. I had a couple really amazing teachers and a writing group, and it was actually more of a sense of community than I get with art. But no, I didn't finish. It was every once in a while, people told me, you're just going to have to go back and look at it again. And it's almost like having all those old paintings. If you start reading it again, you fall back into a whole nother world of where I was when I was doing that. And I don't know what'll happen with it. I have something, but it's not.
You mind me asking what the story is, or just a little synopsis that you could give?
It's about
let me ask you.
Yeah.
Does it relate in any way to your visual art practice? Do you see any parallels?
Well, yeah. It's about a girl who her sister disappears, and she has mental illness, and the other sister, the younger sister who didn't disappear, goes out to New York and tries to find her, and she ends up like meeting all these artists and hanging out in these lofts with, you know, the wacky characters of New York while she's searching for her lost sister. So, I mean, I got in pretty deep. I visualized all this stuff and created this other world. So there was definitely an art element, which, you know, that was easy enough for me to write about that. But yeah, it's sad to just let it disappear. We'll see what happens.
I hope you don't, and I hope that you put it out there and, you know, share it with the world. And, you know, it's one of those. It's definitely a passion project that I think many of us have as creatives. Like, you know, it's another form of expression, right? It's like, how else can we get this desire, this compulsion almost to create? You know, whether you're a musician, you know, or a writer or an artist, or often all of the above, right? It's a desire to just get it out and just share that with the world. So I hope we see that finished novel from you one day, but no pressure. We're how it works. So,
getting it right is pressure. I don't know. It's supposed to. There's a lot. It would have been better if I started with short stories.
I heard that somebody shared recently, just start with essays and then you can kind of bring it all together. But yeah, I definitely, it's not my strong point at all, is you know, I would love to write a book at some point and you know, have that experience, but that's not my strength, unfortunately. Maybe you can have a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I need a ghost editor or something. Yeah, I need something.
Right. Just a ghost. So who would you say have been the biggest influences on you creatively?
What happened? Well, I always talk about when I was in college, I did printmaking. I ended up getting my degree in printmaking and painting. And that was such an amazing part of my development as an artist. I did intaglio, which is etching. And some of the teachers there were really, the medium and the teachers encourage experimentation in a big way. And just, it's a heavily process oriented type of work, which I really connected with. It was a good thing for me. I worked and worked with these zinc metal plates and took them up and down through you keep printing off the same one and then you scratch it all out and start printing again. So basically and then you put the metal on a big press and you put paper over it, roll it in, and you pull up the paper and you see the print. And so every time if you do it like me, which is totally experimental, and put in, I'll try blue and I'll just throw gasoline over it or whatever it might be, every single time that you pull up that print, something new happens. And so it just gave me the feeling for experimentation and the magic. I always talk about the magic of art. That was a great learning experience for me. Truthfully, that's when I first started using paper. And there's a technique called chine-collé, which I didn't do that much of, but basically it's paper on paper, where you kind of put a piece of maybe decorative paper like I use now into the print. So it just got my mind really reeling about doing things differently and doing things my own way and just experimenting. And I have to say that has never left me. I've just been out on my own, doing my own thing in terms of medium and painting and surfaces, because I can, or I like to. That's how I never got like into classical painting and following a particular technique and special oil painting, layering this, that, and whatever. Instead, I decided to do my own. And I do think that, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if there been any kind of, heroes that you've had, not necessarily even artists, perhaps, but just, perhaps folks that maybe really just inspired your journey creatively.
So, in addition to one teacher I'm thinking of was Takeshi Takahara. In Detroit, I had a lot of friends who were doing their own thing. I always think of Jerome Ferretti. Jerome Ferretti was a friend of mine. We had a great community of people in Detroit who are outsiders. There's a lot of, the whole city felt like an outsider experience because we were like the underdog. So some of my fellow artists in Detroit, and then in terms of the art world, I had this period where I was really interested in, well, abstract expressionism, of course, but then some of the neo-expressionism that was coming on, just like heavy brush strokes, almost angry experiment, putting all your emotions out on the canvas. That was something. And then the more beautiful abstract expressionist stuff, whether it's Jackson Pollock, who I know you talk about, and Mark Rothko, and just some of the things where you can go into a museum and stand in front of a piece and just get lost in it and experience it. So the whole gamut of people who I know locally, teachers, and then the greats, the museum artists, all that. I also
no, go ahead, please.
I'm gonna say, like, I also look at patterns from different cultures, since a lot of my work is pattern oriented to bright colors and patterns. And people from Guatemala, India, bright colors, different fabrics, all of that really affects my work. Japanese prints. So that's beyond the traditional art world into not craft or pattern, so different cultures.
Do you, when you set out to create a new piece, do you have an idea of, do you have intent behind where it's going, or are you more autonomous or more of an automatic creator in terms of just kind of going with the flow?
I generally don't have much of an intent other than like, this one's going to be red. I want to try and make a red painting. Right. And I let it all unfold and I work it through on the canvas. But I try to do that every once in a while. I try to keep myself in some sort of direction. I recently have been doing this fire, water, earth, air, and I'll have a general idea of where I'm going like that. But it all changes once it starts coming together.
Agreed. The only thing I can usually have pre-planned is the colors. And even that can sometimes take a drastic turn.
Yeah. My studio is a bunch of papers all over the place, and I just kind of know where certain things are and start putting it together till it gets to be such a mess that I clean it all up and start over again.
And that's the beauty. Now, you mentioned community a couple of times. I feel like we've kind of lost that as the generations have gone along. We think back to, the art movements historically. There was always those artists that kind of worked together and hung out together in the cafes and the bars, and it seemed to bounce ideas off each other and just have that supportive, nurturing community. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we have lost that. We've gained a lot with the technology and how we can communicate with each other, but in some ways it's hindered those environments. You mentioned you had that in Detroit. Do you feel like you have that today?
No, I definitely do not. And I don't know how much of it is some romantic notion of the beatniks getting together or whatever, or Van Gogh, and I don't know. I definitely had it more when I would be in Detroit hanging out at the bars with all the other artists. So sometimes drinking really fuels that, or drugs, that whole world. But now that I'm older, I just don't. It's really sad. I don't have very many artist friends who are nearby who come over to my studio. Like you said, it's all about online, Zoom, Facebook groups.
Especially right now.
Yeah, right. And that's really great that it's a possibility, but it's not quite the same. Either posting and we're going to have to make it the same, but I mean, just posting in groups and not exactly knowing people, never being in front of them face to face. It's just it's different. But I did have, a teacher who encouraged us for the class that I did, to like have study partners. And that was really cool because it's so easy. Like you and I are talking right now. It can be done. You just have to put in the effort to do it. But it's still not the same as sitting in a cafe smoking a cigarette in the 20s.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It has a lot to do with age as well. Because I think back, when I did have that community, I was in my 20s. I was in New York. I was drinking. Yeah, it was, a lot of big ideas and big dreams. And, I think now in my very late 30s, I'm turning 39. It's more about, the real stuff, the planning, not spending hours theorizing these ideas.
Well, just making a living, getting through the day and getting all the things done you have to do. I know.
Yeah, exactly. I live by the skin of my teeth in my 20s, that's for sure. So there's a couple of comments here. I'm going to go to hi from Arizona, from Jenny Kyrgyz Henkaus. Hello. Okay, Francisco Sanchez. I definitely agree. I think you're an artist if you are an artist. As long as you see yourself as that, no one can take that away from you. Absolutely. Sam?
That's my friend.
That's what?
That's my friend. That's my husband. So
oh,
he knows.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Maureen, fabulous writer. I've been fortunate to have read some of her work. Her paintings are also outstanding.
Yeah.
See, everybody needs a Sam.
Yeah,
I have a Sam. But
he's the only one who read all my stuff. Yeah,
that's awesome. And Sam is creative as well. I think you mentioned
he's a
musician. Awesome. So now let me ask you this question then. Do you inspire each other creatively?
Yeah, I think that we do. My dream is that we would have some amazing like collaboration project, but instead, I listen to his songs. He sometimes helps me name my paintings, which is really, it works out because he works out in the studio. So there's a gym, whatever, workout equipment. So he's stuck staring at my paintings for as long as it takes for him to do his cardio, this and that. So by the end, he has some ideas for the titles, which I really do appreciate.
That's awesome. Do you create music? And if so, is it your husband's music?
A long time ago, I used to write songs, and I wrote one recently, and I'm trying to get him to do something with it, but I think he's more interested in his own songs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what do you hope that people take away from your work? What do you hope their experience is?
I think that my work is about energy and life, and the pieces of collage that are pieces of paper coming up against each other on the canvas are creating an energy. I just feel like my paintings are positive, life-affirming inspiration. When you look up at the painting, I hope that you can feel the energy. For myself, they've gotten me through good and bad times, but I think that that's how they can work for someone to have this in their special room or whatever it is. They have this piece that they can look up at and see. It livens them up and hopefully maybe reminds them that life can be good and they will get through difficult times. So it's all about charged with good energy in life.
That's wonderful. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about environment, just the juxtaposition of Detroit, downtown Detroit, very industrial city, obviously big in terms of where motor vehicles were produced during historically until really not that long ago, right? In the 90s or early 2000s. And then you have LA with its luscious environment.
Mm-hmm.
How has your work changed in those two different places? Can you look at your work today and see the parallels between?
Yeah.
Or not maybe the parallels, see the contrast.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Detroit is still making cars.
Okay.
My brother works in a factory, and my father did, and my grandfather did. So that is where I come from. And my work on my original paintings, even to when I was a kid, I would do drawings of industrial landscapes and factories with those cool windows. I mean, I was just fascinated, and I still am, by the industrial landscape. So I was doing more of that. I was younger. I was doing these like cathartic expressionist things about all my feelings and my emotions and everything I was going through at that moment. So because I was younger, and I was striking out in the gritty industrial part of the world, I had a different thing going on. But throughout it all, I had super bright colors, and now I still do. I mean, there's something about a vibrance. The way that I look at art is something beautiful, exciting, emotional, bold, and all that stuff is still with me, even though I'm doing things that are more kind of nature inspired. You look at some of these crazy plants that grow outside my door in LA, they're bold and crazy too, believe me. There's such amazing things that happen when there's an arboretum, LA Arboretum, where I'm just blown away every time. So all of those beautiful, amazing things are in my paintings, even though it looks different now than it did back then.
So what about challenges? Have there been any particular challenges during your life or your experience that you found art to be, maybe a place of comfort or support? Is there anything you would want to share on that?
Yeah, a lot. Through my whole life, as everyone has stuff they have to deal with. Everyone goes through a lot, and I have too. I've had issues with addiction. I've had issues with depression, mental illness in my family. My parents both died a few years ago, and not at the same time, but close. And my cat, which was, I'm still getting over that. There's just the stuff of life and death, plenty. And I always painted my way through it. And I think it's interesting because I talk about the bright colors and bold, vibrant stuff that goes on in my work. Even when I was at one point I was very depressed, and every day I couldn't really do hardly anything, which you can't when you're depressed. But when I did do anything, I would paint. And I would paint this like crazy bright colored stuff. Like you would never imagine that I'm going through inside my head and my world. Because the painting was like me grasping and reaching out for that, and honestly believe that it pulls me through. And that's why when I talked about what other people see in my paintings, or what I hope other people see in my paintings, is really that same kind of energy that helps me. Paintings have been incredibly therapeutic to me. And I don't know how I would have gotten through a lot of stuff without it.
It's amazing to me that how many of our community, how many folks, even just the folks I've spoke to in the last 2 weeks, that are affected by addiction and depression and mental health issues, myself included. I shared about my sobriety and Friday's episode with Michael Conroy. Like it is so rife in our community. Like there's so many people that suffer.
Yes.
Why do you think it comes before, or does it come after the creativity?
I don't know. But I definitely agree with you, because that's part of it. I think I've been sober for like 23 years.
Wow, congratulations.
But I've had, like you're saying, when I was younger, all the artists would go out together and drink, and musicians, and maybe it's because we're open to experimentation, or maybe it's because we're all mentally unbalanced, and that's why we like to make paintings.
I like the first one.
But it is a thing. Maybe we're more willing to try different things, go outside of the norm. But it's a thing. It's a thing for sure. And I had to make a decision at one point to not be in that world anymore. Yeah. But I've always painted, as I said, throughout the whole thing, and that was generally a sober enterprise for me. I would, no matter all the crazy promotion and fun associated with it, might be more in the crazy drinking world, but in terms of making it, I was always present in a different way. So, but yeah, it's definitely a thing.
It is, and you know, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk about it, and for you know, to you for being so open about it as well, because I do think it's important that we kind of change the narrative a little bit. Like, you don't have to be this crazy, you know, drink and drug fueled person to thrive as an artist. Like, in fact, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that there's that stigma with musicians as well, right? Like the rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah, that's true. And I do think, you know, I keep saying that now that you mentioned it, age is part of it. That's something that I did more when I was younger. And I think it's the same with a lot of musicians, but I feel that people I really appreciate, or people who are really serious, are not usually that drunk all the time.
Right. I mean, how could you be? There's only so much you could get done.
But then you, like I said, the community seems to be related to that. Or you think about these artists like, is it Jackson Pollock or someone who's supposed to have been a mean and nasty drunk, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know. It kind of,
we revere these characters like they're you know, heroes, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah. So we just try to be like them.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think it's a, you know, there's definitely a message of hope and positivity in these conversations, that, you know, there are artists out there, which I'm sure there are, that are watching these sessions and, you know, think that you can't be creative or you can't be successful, you can't have these wild ideas and be free and be a free spirit as an artist, that it's BS, basically. You know, you can, if nothing else, I felt like my creativity got deeper and more rich when I did get sober almost 7 years ago now. So, and it sounds like, you know, for you, it's just, it hasn't changed things for the worse at all.
No, it's for the better, for sure. Yeah. This is a transition from when I moved to Detroit to LA, where that kind of happened, or I made a choice to remove myself from that environment to some degree, and it's definitely better. That was for a little while, but I think that other artists, if you're listening, like the intensity that you feel when you're using drugs or alcohol can be greater when you're making a painting that's really clicking and working. It's just as exciting, if not more so, because you're right there, present, feeling it all. So,
and it's much longer lasting, and it doesn't give you a hangover.
Yeah. And you don't have to like hate yourself in the morning. Or
Exactly. Well, wonderful. Thank you, Maureen. I really appreciate you joining me today. And, you know, for anybody out there that wants to learn more about you, about your work, or, you know, just share with us anything that you have coming up and where people can find you.
Well, you can find me at maureenmaki.com or maureenmakiart.com, and Instagram and Facebook, same kind of thing, Maureen Maki Art. I was just going to say, later today, you're doing some workshop, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to try and check in on that and see what you have going on. You're a busy lady.
I'm busy. Today is a very busy one, but yes, I'm just loving having these conversations, and, you know, feel very privileged to get to, you know, get a little insight into your creativity and your world, and learn more about you know, your artwork as well. And obviously we're going to be on quite a long journey together with the class. So
yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad I got to talk to you in person, and I look forward to the work we do together.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. This was Maureen Maki, wonderful artist based out in California. Check out her website. I did just pop her website link in the comments below. And obviously, if you want to purchase one of her beautiful works there in the background, do get in touch. And we will be back on Monday for another edition of Coffee with Artists. All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.